What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Real Time for the Real Everyday Movie Fan. I am, of course, Josh Williams.
I'm Ryan Murphy.
I'm James Sheridan.
Thank you so much for joining us here today because we are here to give you our spoiler heavy. And we're talking spoiler heavy because we wanted to wait until after the weekend so Ryan can get caught up. But we're giving you our spoiler heavy review of the Book of Boba Fett. Now, Ryan, who is the showrunner and who is all in this show?
Well, it's of course created by Jon Favreau, same creator as The Mandalorian. It's also executive produced by Robert Rodriguez, who directed multiple episodes.
Yeah.
And it stars Tamir Morrison and Ming-Na Wen are the main stars of it, but it also, of course, brings back Pedro Pascal, Rosario Dawson, and Mark Hamill to guest star. So
I'm really glad we dropped the spoiler warning already because just that cast list alone blows a lot of plot points.
Yep, it blew. But hey, they got their warning right before we started. So yeah, it was. We'll get to talking about that because that was quite the pleasant surprise.
Yeah, those were not things you wanted spoiled.
No,
half the fun of the show was seeing those things and being shocked that they actually happened.
Right, it was a nice surprise for sure. So before we get to this review, guys, if you like our content, you like what we provide, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you receive all of our great content we have for you in the future. Ryan's got some interviews coming up, and we did a reaction to the Oscar nominations that he's hoping to get up here soon. And so keep a lookout for that. And I got some reviews for you coming up this week. I'm going to go check out Death on the Nile, get that up this week. And also this coming week, look out for Uncharted because I'll be reviewing that one for you guys.
Gosh. Okay.
I've seen the reviews and I'm a little hesitant, but it is what it is.
I saw the trailers and I was hesitant.
I saw the casting of Tom Holland as Nathan Drake and I was hesitant.
I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, but
because you wanted Nathan Fillion as him, so. But anyway, well, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about
wrong movie.
The very anticipated Book of Boba Fett. Ever since his return on Mandalorian season 2, people were hoping to get his own show, and it just so happened it came right after this one. And there was a lot of excitement. I think we can all agree there was a lot of excitement because Boba Fett is one of the big, out of the original characters from the original Star Wars, he was one of the most beloved, especially as a bounty hunter.
Yeah, he's the most surprisingly popular character because they created this character that was just on screen for about 10 seconds total in 2 movies and just ran away. And they actually have a documentary on Disney Plus now, like Behind the Mask, the success of Boba Fett, and just how popular this character became. Side note, the Mandalorian armor, basically the look of Boba Fett, was designed by Joe Johnston, who was a worker at Industrial Light and Magic back in the 70s and 80s, who went on to become a very successful film director. Directed the first Captain America and many other, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, many other movies.
I think one of the Jurassic Parks was his.
Jurassic Park 3, yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
He brought us the Spinosaurus.
Didn't he also do Rocketeer?
He did do Rocketeer, yeah.
Yeah, Rocketeer was a big one for him. That was a big win.
I wasn't a big fan of Rocketeer. I thought
okay, so
it might have been different age group, but anyway.
Book of Boba Fett.
Anyway, the Book of Boba Fett, there was a lot of hype coming around this one. And so coming into this, by the end of it, I'll start us off. Okay, it was good, but for me, it did not stick the landing. The very end, I can't remember what, I used the same analogy for either another show, or maybe it was Hawkeye, where I felt like the landing just didn't stick very well. They did a good job, but when they landed down after doing their tricks and all that stuff, they kind of stumbled and stuck their pose.
I'm surprised because you say that for both these shows because neither of these shows has any real surprises. It's just basically like, we know who the bad guy is. They go in the last episode as they go fight the bad guy, and there's some big action scenes.
Well,
there's a few surprises.
There's a few surprises, but also it's just how I was interested in the story about how he's changed from being the bounty hunter, what happened to him with the Tusken Raiders, and kind of got more humanized with them. I really like that, and it kind of showed his growth. I appreciated the growth, but also they weren't as interesting for me as something for like Din's quests or his character development or his stories that he goes on through stories. It just wasn't. It was interesting, but not interesting enough to be so invested. Like I was kind of feel like I was doing it because I knew we were doing this. You know what I mean? So I wasn't like amped and excited. I wasn't excited at first. It wasn't until Dave Filoni came in and brought us 2 of the best episodes, which had nothing to do with Boba Fett. Well, it was about Din and him, finding his clan and all that stuff. and it just those 2 episodes, and then going to find Grogu and Luke, and that whole thing. We'll get into that.
Yeah, when it turned into the Mandalorian season 3, none of us realized it was going to be the Mandalorian season 3. But
yeah, and so, but and I can understand people's trepidation and kind of frustration with that because it was nothing to do with Boba Fett. But at the same time, I can see on the other side of the coin, if you had just the Mandalorian just show up, if you had Din just show up and start helping Boba without giving explanation of where he's been, what he's doing, and what's going on, people will also just kind of bitch and complain about that too. Like, well, why aren't we, what's going on with him? Why aren't we getting to know that? So it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of scenario with those 2 episodes. I felt like,
but I don't think it's quite the same as having an entire episode of the Book of Boba Fett with no Boba Fett, where he literally does not appear.
Yeah, but so anyway, I'm gonna give this one probably. Sorry, my dog's barking. I'm gonna give this one probably a 7.5 out of 10. It was still a fun, decent show. I still enjoyed it. I just didn't like how abrupt did it end for Boba Fett. And even after all that happened, at the end, he goes, I don't think I'm cut off this. I'm like, you just went through hell to finally get the respect of these fucking people. And now you do whatever. But either way, I can't pronounce his first name. Tamari Morrison. He did a great job. Not more I can say about that. But one of you guys go ahead. We'll talk more about it. Ryan, why don't you go ahead? We'll have James go last.
I'll probably go ahead and give this a 6.5 out of 10, just because it's not as good as Hawkeye. Elephant in the room, all of a sudden Boba Fett comes back and he's 20 years too old and 40 pounds too heavy. Like, and he just just elephant in the room. It's just like, he doesn't look like what he actually would look like at this point, like either from his age or like, obviously he's clearly visibly quite heftier than he was at the end of Return of the Jedi. But that's just, aesthetics. And then, you get into the actual plot. It's all right. I thought it was rather bizarre that it turned into season 3 of The Mandalorian, but whatever. He fights some bad guys. It's really, if you cut out the 2 episodes that are just Din Djarin and Luke Skywalker, and you get rid of all the flashbacks. This is like 3 episodes maybe worth of stuff of him. Like there's these bad guys that are coming to trade spice, and let's go fight them, and they fight them, and it's over.
Transport spice, through Tatooine,
It's not an overly complex. It's not burdened with an overabundance of complexity, but it's entertaining. It's got some balls to the wall action. The budget for this show just floored me. Every episode I watched is like, this is insane. They're just building all these tremendous sets, and they have all these extras and all these costumes and all this CGI. The CGI on Luke that everyone complained about in The Mandalorian
deep fake was
10
awesome.
times better.
Yeah, that deep
it was probably
fake
has something to do with the fact that the guy wasn't there a guy who did it better on his home computer and then got hired by Lucasfilm.
He was a YouTuber who did it better on a deep fake, and Lucasfilm hired him.
Yeah,
to do it.
And maybe he's the guy responsible for Luke looking like 10 times better. I mean, so entertaining enough. Just nothing groundbreaking here. Nothing too exciting. So,
James, what about you, Mo?
It's no secret that I've never been a Boba Fett fan. I call him an action figure because in most of his appearances in the original trilogy, he's a dude in the background. And we were introduced to all of these different bounty hunters in Empire Strikes Back. And it's just like action figure standing in the background. And he's just the one that they sort of focus on and then give him a little bit of plots and some lines. But he never has any character other than being just a character in the background. Like, he's a cool looking character, but I've never understood the love for this character because there's no character. He's just a guy in the background. Now, of course, Clone Wars and, Attack of the Clones did a little bit to give him a lot background.
A lot more.
Well, I wouldn't even say that there was still any character yet. It was just like we get some history, and that doesn't necessarily add to character. And I wanted to see this action figure get some character. So when he showed up in Mandalorian season 2, it was exciting because for the first time he was actually a badass on screen and not just a guy getting knocked into a hole in the desert. And he actually could hold his own and fight. And it reminds me of the fight scene in the end of Rogue One when Vader showed up and is just butchering rebel soldiers left and right. And it's just like,
right.
Why have we not gotten this scene before? I've wanted this scene for years, and finally we got it. It's like, that's what I've been waiting for. And this is what I was waiting for with Boba Fett, was something that he did that was cool. So going into this, I was trepidatious because, again, a character without any actual character. He's just cool looking and brooding and whatnot. And I wanted to see more, and I wanted there to be some development of who he is and like why he's doing these things. And they kind of moved in a direction of like moving him away from the action figure kind of, brooding badass. And a lot of people had a problem with that because they wanted to see him like going out there and like collecting bounties. And it's like, I like the idea of him being a little more developed and wanting something better in his life instead of just working for other people. That was one of the major plot points, is that he doesn't want to be working for idiots anymore. He wants to be calling the shots and making better choices, not just for him, but the people who work for him. And I like that idea, but I like Josh said, I don't feel like they stuck the landing on that. And I feel like there was a lot of buildup with no sort of, like, the last episode was kind of fun in that, like, we got some action and like all kinds of characters kind of got their moment, but it's like, it's all kind of for nothing because it doesn't really feel like there's any real consequences to what's going on. Yes, there is, in terms of like, they're changing the political landscape of Tatooine, but it's like, I'm not invested in the political landscape of Tatooine, and I don't have any sort of interest in what they're doing because none of it really means anything to me as an audience member. And I feel like they needed to, I don't know how they would have gotten there, but they needed to do something else to kind of build on that. And like, we introduced the concept of the Pike Syndicate, but like, what the hell is the Pike Syndicate? Why do I care about what the Pike Syndicate is? Like,
well, they've been around for quite a while. They were featured in Clone Wars and Rebels. If you're a deep Star Wars fan, you follow these things. So like, I knew about the Pike Syndicate.
I'm a pretty deep Star Wars fan. I just don't watch I haven't watched the shows.
I am the token, not Clone Wars. I'll get around to Clone Wars eventually, but I've not watched Clone Wars. Have not watched Rebels. So everyone's like, oh my God, Ahsoka. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, oh my God, Katie Sackhoff. And I'm like, okay. And then, oh my God, Cad Bane. I'm like, okay.
And those were cool. Those characters, I have enough understanding to appreciate them on screen. The Pike Syndicate, they gave me nothing to work on in the show other than to, like, it's just a name drop. They are masked characters. They show up and they're soundly beaten and they go away. And it's like, we've had all kinds of other different gangs that could have been involved here. Like, they very early on had the Hutts involved, and then they just back away because they're afraid of the Pike Syndicate. And then, of course, a lot of people were speculating that the Pike Syndicate might have had something to do with Solo and the gang in that, and that Kira might show up because, of course, we all know Darth Maul's dead now, so he couldn't show up. So that was something people were waiting for. Yes, he is.
What are you talking about?
Darth Maul is dead.
He shows back up in Solo.
Obi-Wan Kenobi killed him on Tatooine. Obi-Wan Kenobi's been dead for like 15 years.
In like a comic book?
No,
in the series.
At the end of Rebels, Obi-Wan Darth
at the
Maul,
end of Rebels.
at the end of Rebels, before episode 4, Darth Maul goes to search out for Obi-Wan on Tatooine, finds him. They fight for like 10 seconds. Yeah. Well, because Obi-Wan learned from his prior mistakes. I thought that was going to be no spoilers for Rebels, I guess. I don't have to watch Rebels anymore, but I thought that was going to be what Obi-Wan Kenobi, the live action series, was going to be. I thought that was going to. I thought
I'm hoping we'll get that scene in live action.
Yeah, I hope we get the same scene in live action. That'd be great. But they did. It was in Rebels. If you look it up on YouTube, it's out there.
So canonically, he's dead now. Kira's running the show.
Yeah, Kira's running Crimson Dawn. Yeah,
as far as we know. Crimson Dawn, to me, at least, because most people will have seen the movies, not necessarily the shows. I feel like that would have been a better direction to go. But anyway, that's splitting hairs. I'm actually going to cheat and give this show 2 different scores for a very important reason. One, because actual Book of Boba Fett was a bit of a disappointment. So I'm giving it a solid 6. Not even a 6.5, a solid 6. The addition of the Din Djarin stuff outshone everything.
It really did.
Book of Boba Fett. The 2 episodes of just Din Djarin doing his thing had so many great moments, had so much better character development, had so much better plot development for a different show, that it outshone everything else that was done in Book of Boba Fett. Because of its inclusion, I'm going to bump it up to an 8, but only because of that aspect, because that stuff was so strong and so well done and just makes me miss that show even more.
And it proved you right. Because when we did our review of season 2, we were like, fuck, man, like they end the show with Grogu going off with Luke, and like we know how that's going to end. He's going to get cut up by Kylo Ren in the second Jedi Purge. And James was the one who was like, nope, he's going to come back. He's going to come back to Mando.
Because it never made sense to me that they would introduce a character, it would become so beloved, and then they would just send it off to his death. Like, it's the most popular character in Star Wars in decades. And like, they're not just going to send them away. The entire plot of the show has been about their relationship. And that's why I love these 2 episodes, is because it's the further development of that relationship. And it puts Grogu in a place where now he can remember some of his training and kind of unlock a little bit of that. He clearly has some trauma he needs to deal with that I think is going to be a fascinating story point moving forward, with the flashback to Order 66. But more importantly, he's presented this choice, a very important choice between, will he continue his training, or will he go back to this father figure that means so much to him and is his only real anchor in this universe? Because for how many years now, he's just been traded back and forth between, who knows, like, what's he been doing since Order 66? We don't really know. And like, I mean, I would like some flashback on that too, but like, I feel like the development of those 2 episodes for these few characters, and then a little bit we got in the last episode, meant way more than anything Boba Fett was doing.
Yeah, and that was the troubling part for me, was that this just felt more interesting. And I think what the reason, I was thinking about it as we're talking about it just now, and I think the reason why I wasn't so invested is because Ryan said it. When you take out the flashbacks and the Din Djarin stuff, the meat of the main story was like 3 episodes long. It wasn't enough for me to gravitate toward and latch onto. And so I just didn't care as much as I wanted to. And that was the root of the problem.
To be fair, 3 episodes long is about the length of a movie that you would watch from beginning to end and care about. And so
I guess that is true. I don't know. It didn't hit me as hard as I'd hoped. Maybe it's because everything seemed to happen so fast. As far as like what happened on Tatooine with the Syndicate and whatnot. I didn't mind the Syndicate, but I also feel like,
well, my complaint about the Syndicate is it's what I mean by that is that none of the characters that were brought into this show really felt like they were anybody. The whole gang with the implants and all that stuff meant very little to me. The Gamorreans meant almost nothing to me. All of the different gangs on the planet meant nothing to me. The only ones that we have any sort of vested interest in were Fennec Shan, who we've already met, and we're just sort of, it's like a holdover interest. Boba Fett, because again, it's a holdover interest. Black Kirsten, who again doesn't get a lot of development, but only Black Kirsten's the big Wookiee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's from the comics and shows and all that stuff, and he has a whole history with Boba Fett.
I was pretty excited to see him.
I was too, and then they didn't really do anything with him. I was excited for, like, there was a certain point where Ryan was going through the show. Me and Josh had already almost finished it, and he went, "Oh wow, Danny Trejo," and we're like, we completely forgot about Danny Trejo.
I forgot about Danny Trejo completely. Yeah,
because the Din Djarin stuff just completely overshadowed it.
It really did.
And it's like, I wish that had, like, of course the
Rancor.
The Rancor comes back, but Danny Trejo doesn't. This apparent trainer of this thing has no, like, he's in it for like 5 seconds and then disappears again.
Yeah.
Why can't we have him back? And then, like, none of these characters mean anything. The only character that had any personality was the fucking Twi'lek.
Yeah.
It was annoying as hell.
Now, I didn't have that much. I feel like they could have done more with the Wookiee, but it was neither here nor there. It was just so amazing to see him. The same with Cad Bane. Now, I don't think Cad Bane's dead.
I hope not, because that pissed me off. I'm not even a big Cad Bane fan, but if they're going to introduce him in live action and then kill him in the next episode, like,
I don't know, man, he's as dead as Rick.
No, I don't think he's dead, because at the end, when you see him laying there, you see something beeping on his jacket, I believe, because if you remember in Clone Wars, he has a droid that follows him around everywhere. Yeah, it's literally like his sidekick. I feel like he's gonna come back after being healed or whatever.
I was just gonna say that he's as dead as Rick. What's his face in Suicide Squad? They didn't show the insert shot that that James Gunn was very adamant. Like, I had that insert shot of his heart being penetrated, because just to relay, any fear, any suppositions that he might not be dead. So they didn't have that shot in here, but he was stabbed directly through the chest. Like, right where a human heart would be. Yeah. Maybe a doesn't have the heart.
But there. James, going back to the Syndicate, I still believe that in the end, it's still not fully done yet, because the Syndicate, who was there, that's not all of the Pike Syndicate. And if you remember from Clone Wars, this is where I believe season 2 is going to come in for this, because I feel like it's going to come back to bite Boba in the ass. Crimson Dawn is really the one in charge of the Syndicate. The Syndicate's kind of the lower tier, and the Crimson Dawn is the top tier of the crime organization as far as spice and all that stuff, because she took it over from Maul after he died.
Sure, but my problem with it is that they aren't giving us any information to go on from that. Like,
I know
Cad Bane and Black Kirsten are like deep cuts into lore, but they're also like familiar. If you've been on the internet, you've seen these characters somewhere before. Whereas the Pike Syndicate is an even deeper cut that, like, I'm pretty good with my Star Wars lore. I have no idea who these characters are, and they spent no time explaining it to me other than that, oh, the Pike Syndicate's coming.
And I think that's maybe one of the faults of, I wouldn't say a fault, but it can be to bring in everyday fans, like bring in new fans and bring in people who just want to casually watch. These deep cuts can get confusing. I think Dave Filoni does this almost unapologetically. Like, he's going into it thinking that you're such a nerd that he is, that you would know these things as far as about the Pike Syndicate, because Pike Syndicate, they're mostly living, they reign on Kessel, the planet of Kessel, where all the spice is really coming from. Mm-hmm. And so that's where this Crimson Dawn comes in, because they take over that area. But here nor there. So I think that can be a good thing and a bad thing, because for hardcore fans, they're freaking the fuck out and they're in love with this, and they're already kind of caught up because they've had so much time with these characters in other stuff like cartoons or cartoons and comics and whatnot and books. But for an everyday goer, this can be a negative thing. Or not, and I'm not saying you're an everyday goer, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not, they're not giving somebody enough to explain what's going on. He's almost like treating you like you should already know. Does that make sense? And I think that can be, and for a character like a fault of it.
And for a character like Black Kirsten, I'm fine with that, because he's a character that's just supposed to show up and kind of be there. He's not a character of like, if you know the history between him and Boba Fett, it's a fun appearance.
Same with Cad Bane.
Cad Bane, they actually gave some dialogue to explain that there's a history between them when Boba Fett says, I'm not a kid anymore.
Yeah. And like, I, as someone who has not seen those shows, understood there was a history. I was like, oh, they must have had history in the Clone Wars, which I haven't seen. But until you guys mentioned just now, I had no idea that he had previously known the Wookiee until the Wookiee woke him up in the back of the tank and strangled him. Like,
yeah.
Well, the Wookiee's a really deep cut.
Yeah, it was,
because I think he's almost exclusively comics, but
he is. He's not in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, so it's a really deep cut. It's cool to see him on screen, but again, he's an action figure. We're dealing with him as he is, but because the Pike Syndicate was plot specific,
yeah, the
lack of plot explanation for why they are such a threat to me is a failing, and they needed to develop that. That said, going back to like everything, there's so much I did love about this show. The Tuskens had so much more development as a species. Exploring their history and background is fascinating. Getting a little more history of Tatooine was fascinating. I really want to know more about it being an all-water planet at one point. Yeah, like I want to see that history somewhere.
Yeah.
I realize that's a super, super deep cut. Like I saw someone post on YouTube like an explanation of how it became like this desert planet and everything. I think that's fascinating. The fact that Jawas and Tuskens like evolved from the same species that inhabited the planet and whatnot, have been here since before that happened.
And Jawas are furry, apparently.
Yeah, that was weird and funny. Loved that. Loved the like him sort of spending time with them. They spent a little too long in that realm, I think. Like that could have been half an episode and we could have moved on, but I think they wanted to kind of like because it was a 5-year period apparently that he was with them, and they wanted to make it feel like it was that long, but it's like we the audience don't need to feel that length of time. Right. You can put up an explainer card that like 5 years later that works fine. I know the thing is to show don't tell, but like sometimes you have to tell just for the sake of brevity. You have to tell. So that was great. I actually, a lot of people were complaining about the Borg speed biker people, the implant people. I don't remember what they're called, but the ones who have the nice little colorful Vespas.
Yeah.
People were angry about them. Like, it's a cool little add to the Star Wars lore. Why is it so? Why are you so angry? Like this is kind of fun.
Yeah, because cyborgs have been around for a long time. We've always gotten hints of it, like Anakin's hand, Luke's hand, whatnot.
Sure.
But there's been plenty of like in the lore of Star Wars where people have modified themselves to improve themselves. And it's just kind of cool to have that be more of a forefront in this one. I liked it.
Plus, these are teenagers living on a desert planet where there is no real culture. There is no real sort of like they're bored.
Yeah.
And they're presented an opportunity to do something else with themselves. They can't leave the planet because they're obviously not, very well off. So like they add some color to their life with like weird machines and like gadgets and bits and bobs on themselves. So it's like, teenagers go and get tattoos and like body modifications when they live in small towns because they're bored.
Right.
And they get like, this is true to life. So like, I didn't find that as offensive. It's still fun. The Rancor showing up at the end was a lot of fun. Again, going back to Din Djarin, we keep missing the most important character who keeps showing up and nobody keeps mentioning, fucking R2-D2.
Yeah, the fact that he showed up a couple times was pretty cool.
I want to know what happened to him though. Like he shows up at the end to drop off Grogu.
And then he probably just left.
He's left again, but I'm waiting for like, an X-Wing to strafe in and just blast the hell out of like all of these bad guys. I'm like, where's R2? Where is he? Come on, guys.
Hang on. So real quick, you got to a great point because I want to start talking about those 2 episodes.
Oh boy.
So because there's a couple things I want to discuss with you guys because there's questions I've been asking. Curious about you guys, your thoughts on. Now, I thought for me personally, seeing Luke and Ahsoka together, that really I teared up a little. Not gonna lie, because the fact that she has. You were angry? Oh, dude.
Because he didn't get his moment where she finds out that Anakin was redeemed.
Yes.
He didn't see that on screen. He's been talking about that for a long time.
I want that meeting between them and for Luke to give her some absolution and for her like some resolution on that. Because Anakin's gone now, but I'd like to see her sort of like he was redeemed.
Maybe we might get that with Ahsoka, her own show.
I'm hoping so.
Maybe I think there's rumors that he's going to be appearing in Ahsoka. In the Ahsoka show. That'd be great to see him as a Force ghost. But and it actually made it feel like they've known each other for a little while now, which was kind of nice.
I love the references to like, she's a friend of the family.
Yeah, but also it's like the moment where she says, much like your father. And there was something very cool that I noticed about the interaction. As she was leaving, he utters the words, "Will I ever see you again?" And to me, if you don't know, it was just such a cool little moment because those are the last words that Anakin said to his mother before he left. And I don't know, it's just that weird coincidence. And it's not a coincidence that Dave Filoni did that. I feel like it was very much done on purpose. It was such a nice little moment. And
it rhymes.
Yeah. But it was such a great moment. I loved every second of it. And then now, apparently Yoda's lightsaber has been retconned because if you don't know, in the comic books, his lightsaber was tossed into a fire, and so that's apparently not the case now.
It's been destroyed in 2 different ways. The story team actually came out and made an addendum about this. They said that he actually had 2 lightsabers.
Okay.
Because Yoda's a character who apparently accidentally loses his lightsaber a lot, so he had spares.
There you go.
So, and here's the conversation I want to get into. Did you guys like? I will give my answer, and then I want to curious about yours. Did you guys like the fact that Grogu chose the shirt over the lightsaber? Now hang on. I'm torn because on one hand, I like it because it shows how strength the relationship between him and Din. In fact, him and Din are together. On the other hand, I'm not happy about this for him and Din to be active because what do we do now with Grogu's story? Because before he was going to be off on his own, getting his own quest, his own life. And now he's just kind of back to being, in my opinion, just sort of Din's sidekick. Mm-hmm. And for me, having him be with Luke, at least for a little while, I wouldn't have minded like if somehow Grogu did survive that Kylo Ren destroying the temples, or something. You just never know. And I liked that idea of like him being there, learning to be a Jedi, and then eventually still going to find Din after what happens at the temple and hiding out or something. Like Luke tells him to go hide out, or because he knows how special Grogu is to the Force and just to the Jedi and as a whole, just to go hide and find Mando. But now we're not going to get that, what could have been a great Grogu season, like his own show. of learning to be a Jedi with Luke, because that deep fake was fucking sick. You could have done so much great story with that, but now we're not going to get it unless we do, and somehow he goes back. I don't know, but right now he is back with Din, and for me, it's just like there was so much story you could have told there. Now what? Because we're still about 20 years out until Force Awakens, if I'm not mistaken. At this point in
30
time,
years out.
Yeah, something like that. And so there's so much time left to tell so much. And I just like, I don't know. I was excited about the idea of him possibly being a Jedi, still going to find Mando afterwards, and something like helping him take Mandalore again. I don't know. I don't know what it was. There's so much you could have told. But now I feel like he's not as powerful as he could have been to be better off, better with the Force. But then again, this whole season has been a theme. The theme around this is not following what is supposed to be your destiny or your fate. Like the Boba Fett's fate and his destiny, people thought was always just to be a bounty hunter, what you're supposed to be. And he decided, no, I'm not going to be that. I want to be my own boss. I want to be my own man, and so on and so forth. The same thing with Grogu. His destiny was to become a Jedi, and he rejected that. This kind of the same theme, through line theme of the season. But I just didn't quite agree with it. James or Ryan, you want to go ahead? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I don't really have as much of a dog in this fight as you guys. Like, I'm not as like, Grogu and Din and all that sort of stuff. Like, Mandalorian's cool. I'll watch season 3, but I'm not like, oh my gosh about it. So, it's whatever. I mean, he's gonna take another 50 years to age anyway, which is gonna be like, he's gonna still, like, Din's gonna be like, gosh, I'm gonna die and you're still gonna be a kid. This kind of sucks, but
yeah,
but
Grogu's about 50-ish, something like that right now.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be at 50. Yeah.
But James, what about you, man?
See, I saw that differently. I understand where you're coming from. I don't think his journey within the Force is finished. I think those scenes were very important because they established that Luke helped him unlock his memory. Luke wasn't training him. Luke was helping him unlock his memory. He was more like he's remembering. Yeah, he's more like he's remembering his training. Grogu's already had some training, and we know from supplemental material and the movies, Luke's trained himself primarily. Yeah, he had a few weeks with Obi-Wan at most, a few weeks with, or like days with Obi-Wan, and a few weeks with Yoda, and then like the comics have added like the odd character that he's learned from, but he's primarily learned from himself. And we establish in The Force Awakens, or not The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, that he's learned from some texts and whatnot, but those came much, much later. I think that Grogu is going to slowly develop his memory of these events. And I think that's going to be his story. Him dealing with not just relearning how to use the Force, but dealing with the PTSD of Order 66 and all of the problems that sort of came out of that. Because like we established in, I think it's the Ahsoka episode, that he's locked his memories away. Like he's clearly suppressed what happened to him. He doesn't have any memory of what's going on. Yeah. And in the middle of this training, he starts to have a flashback to Order 66. Question that we can ponder in a moment. Who was that pulled him out of that?
Yeah.
But I want to continue on this thread. I don't like that moment for the moment where Luke presents him with the two ideas. I understand it's like an old, it's kind of a throwback to, they used it in Avatar, and I believe it's a method that they use for selecting the Dalai Lama by presenting, elements of their past that they choose from, like different objects from their past.
And it's a samurai thing too.
Yeah. Well, this one's specifically about unlocking, like in Avatar, it was specifically about unlocking aspects of himself, his past selves and whatnot, because he's lived so many different lives. Like he's an individual, but like there's the essence of the Avatar in him. And in order to kind of like key into the fact that he is the Avatar, he has to pick from a series of toys that he's played with over, like that the Avatar owned in different lifetimes and whatnot. And I feel like it's that kind of thing where it's like a spiritual unlocking of an aspect of himself, and he has to make a choice. I don't like it because it's forcing Grogu, who clearly isn't ready to make this choice, a very like black or white choice of you stay or you go.
Yeah.
And it's like this kid clearly needs your help, Luke. And I understand that he's got this attachment to somebody else. And I know that you're afraid of attachment because of what happened to your father, and this is going to lead into the problems that will become The Force Awakens and everything else, and your failure with Ben. I think that you needed to not force this choice upon him and help him develop as a Force user who can have attachments, but not have attachments, but still like Anakin says, we still love, we just can't have attachment. Like he still needs to have that love for Din Djarin, but not be beholden to him and not be so afraid to lose him, and that they will go back to each other at some point.
And that's also the kind of same issue I had too. I'm glad you brought that up, because he says like, you can't have attachments. You can love, but not, want to be, for them, whatnot. I have a problem with that because that is the old Jedi way. That is from like before Clone Wars. Like, yeah, that's the dogma of the old Jedi.
Right, and that's I know that you're gonna say like the movies, the expanded universe pre The Force Awakens, the expanded universe that they had Luke having. I mean, first of all, when they first published the first post Return of the Jedi books, they had Luke and the Jedi getting married and everything because there was nothing to say they couldn't get married. Then George Lucas pulled it out of his ass in episode 2 that they couldn't, and so they had to retcon that Luke had made a new rule for the new Jedi Order that they could get married and everything. But there's nothing but then the expanded universe and that continuity has been thrown out in favor of the Disney canon, and there's been nothing in the Disney canon to say that wouldn't be the case, that he would have changed anything at all.
Kind of.
That then again, I've always
there's Obi-Wan's relationship to Satine, or what's her name? Satine. And there is
she
a fallout.
She was the ruler of Mandalore during the Clone Wars.
Now, there's political reasons why they can't be together, but it wasn't necessarily entirely due to the Jedi. The story team has come out and stated that it isn't a hard and fast rule with the Jedi. Even then, it wasn't a hard and fast rule. Right. There were Jedi who did take lovers. There were Jedi who did have spouses.
But the other,
it still comes back to the point of attachment versus compassion and love. And I think Luke made a mistake in not allowing Grogu to stay and to guide him through this relationship, not to cut it off and say, you have to choose either that or this, because now you're sending him off as a Force user with an attachment. What's to say he's not going to become dark side? He's not going to become Sith. And you've just sent this unguided child out into the universe by himself. He clearly has great potential in the Force, second only to Master Yoda, or who knows, he could even surpass him. And you've just sent him unguided into why not teach him? Why not help him and try and develop that? And I know you're scared of your father repeating himself. Shouldn't you be the one to try and prevent that?
Yeah. And, hold on one second, Josh. My computer's going to die. I need to grab my charger real quick. I forgot.
Okay. Yeah, I know a lot of people wanted that Ahsoka scene to be like, she got redeemed and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I'm hoping we still will get it. It's just sort of like when I saw them together and it's like, no, they've already met. No, you've stolen that scene from me. I want that. I want it so bad because I want her to have
that
closure. Ahsoka's been
through
through so much. Just give her that closure.
Yeah,
the last time she saw him, he was a monster.
Well, last time she saw him, she fought him.
Yeah.
And
you guys are spoiling Rebels for me completely. I'm just.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Anyway,
dude, it's been out for 15 years.
I know, right? It's been out. So the reason I'm having such a problem with it, I did like the scene. It was cool. It's very reminiscent, like samurai, how you make the choice to either have a sword or live your life as like a farmer or something like that. It's kind of cool. But the problem I have, the reason I have a problem with it so much, is because how do I word this? It goes against everything that happened in the original trilogy with how for him to for him to give Grogu that kind of ultimatum didn't make sense, because it was his attachments to his father, to Leia, to Han, that got him to where he was in Return of the Jedi. And for him to go back in Empire Strikes Back, it was his attachments and his love that kept him in the light side. He was, for me, those moments in the original trilogy and Return of the Jedi showed that you can have attachments and love and still reject the dark side because it's wrong. because he used those same attachments to help his father bring his father back to the light. His love for his father brought him back to the light, and that's an attachment. And that to me, I was like, you're pretty much going. I bow at the feet of Dave Filoni, but and Jon Favreau, but this didn't make sense because of that reason. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree with you, but I also disagree with you. I think that within the scope of Empire Strikes Back, his attachments were a weakness. His attachments were a mistake because they led him into danger and they put his friends into danger because they were targets and everything. And the Empire knew that they could use that against him. Where I think the story went with it was that he overcame the necessity of being manipulated by those attachments. Because there's a certain point in Return of the Jedi where like he could very, very clearly cut down Vader, who's, you know, beaten and down, and just end that entire thing. And then, you know, the Emperor kind of like gives him an ultimatum and he just throws away his lightsaber. Like he's clearly moved beyond being manipulated by these people anymore. I think that's where his character development went, and where his character development needed to go within the show is guiding Grogu past that point too. He can still have the attachments. He can still love Leia and Han and R2 and 3PO and Chewbacca and maybe Lando, and the rest of them. I mean, let's face it, Luke and Lando weren't exactly close. But Luke and Lando weren't very close. But like, I feel like that's the story. That's the character development that we got in the original series that we should have seen continued in this. And I think that's the mispoint, is that like Luke could have guided Grogu. He chose not to, or he chose to force this choice onto a child who doesn't understand the consequences of this. Like, yes, the child's been around for 50 years, but mentally he's still a child,
right? And
doesn't understand the consequences of his choice.
Sure.
And now Luke's put everybody into a situation where this very powerful Force user is out there without guidance and how to deal with these things. He's still going to have to deal with those things because they are inevitable consequences of being involved with other people. And like, Luke didn't learn from his own example. So I'm glad you brought up the original trilogy and his development of those things. I think that's a mistake on Luke's part. I think he's an asshole for putting Grogu in that situation. And I understand that they're developing the idea that like he didn't learn the lesson, and that's why Ben ends up going to the dark side. But it's like, oh, bet Luke, you're missing the point. It's right in front of you.
Yeah, and I think, and that's the other thing that's kind of frustrated me too, because he didn't have to choose between the Force and being a Jedi and Leia and Han and all those people. Like, he still has his relationships and his love with Leia and everybody else, Chewie, Han, so on and so forth. And to make Grogu choose between his relationship with Din and becoming a Jedi, where he's not giving up either one of his, is it was hypocritical, and I was just kind of disappointed that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau missed that.
I think it's intentional. I think that they're doing that on purpose to put him into a position where, again, he's going to fuck up with Ben, and he's not going to have the foresight and like ability to understand his mistakes with Ben that lead Ben to the dark side and make him so easily manipulated by Snoke, aka
Palpatine,
Ghost of Palpatine.
I'm still hoping that they might go ahead and just form a different continuity from the sequel trilogy. You know, just
a lot of people, the story team have come out and said that's not happening. The sequels are still canon.
Son of a bitch.
Son of a bitch.
I like the sequels, so I'm fine with it.
So everything, we're going to see Luke train more Jedi, then the second Jedi Purge hits, and we're back to square one. Great.
Yeah.
But it was knowing that shit is coming sucks, but it was still cool to see for the first time in 30 years, like we're seeing like a sequel to Return of the Jedi that picks up just a few years later, and we're seeing Luke training the next 5 years, Jedi. And even I am not familiar with Clone Wars. It's kind of cool to see someone from Clone Wars, someone from that era come and bring it full circle with Ahsoka and him being, I mean, that stuff was cool. Some other positives I will go ahead and say that I thought of are, one is
yeah, the score was awesome.
When that dropped in the 5th episode, I lost my mind. I'm like, they're not bringing him back, are they? They're not actually bringing. Why would they put that in there if they're not bringing him back?
You're talking about the Mandalorian thing. I'm talking about the Boba Fett.
Oh, thing, sorry, yeah.
Sorry, the Boba Fett theme.
Yeah.
And who does it again? I'm sorry,
Ludwig Göransson did
Ludwig
both.
Göransson, yeah. So, it's such a great score.
they had to bring him back to do a new. But the other thing is, you guys, are you guys ready to hate me? Guys,
Go ahead.
You're ready to hate me. Okay, this was The Godfather. It's literally a story about a mobster who drugs is just going too far for and doesn't want to get involved in the drug trade and ends up getting into a war with the other mobsters. I mean, it's literally the story of.
See, it's funny because
Wow.
I saw the allusions to Dune, where they're trying to control the spice trade and stop the spice trade because the locals are being manipulated by the spice trade.
There's a line in The Godfather where they're debating whether or not they should get into the drug trade, and Sonny says there's a lot of money in that white powder. And there's literally a line in Boba Fett where Fennec Shand goes, "Hey, there's a lot of money in that orange powder."
That's a great comparison, Ryan. Wow, that's awesome. Actually, I didn't make that connection. That's pretty cool. Yeah, wow, that's really interesting. It's interesting way to think about it. So we get like The Godfather Part 2, and
Well, yeah, The Godfather, season 2, he kills his own brother.
Yep, exactly.
There we go. Sorry if I just
ruined it. We have Daniel Logan come back and do the in between parts where he's a slightly older teenage Boba Fett. In not Italy, but instead of being the Robert De Niro part.
Yeah, exactly. He grows a little pencil thin mustache, and he goes and he shoots.
Yeah,
he goes and stalks some guy through the streets during a festival and shoots him. Like, absolutely. By the way, we're just ruining The Godfather for people and The Godfather Part 2.
Again, that movie's been out for like 50 goddamn years. Come on,
it is the 50th anniversary this year.
Yes, if you haven't seen it by now, I have no apologies.
Now, even though me and Ryan are not big fans of the new trilogy, and
you said the first one was better than the first Star Wars, so I don't know where this is coming from.
I'm wrong.
He has come to my side.
I still like it. I enjoy out of it, but it's dropped down on the list for me, just a little bit. But just as a trilogy as a whole is just not good. But either way, what I love is that there's still about 25 years of story we can really sink our teeth into before all that happens. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of excited about that because we're getting Ahsoka coming up, and we're going to be going also back in time for
Obi-Wan.
Andor. And then Obi-Wan is coming out, which would be cool if it comes out on May. I think it's May 25th.
It is coming out on May 25th anniversary.
Yeah, because that's the anniversary of A New Hope, which is really awesome. And so we have a lot to look forward to with that. And it's already been confirmed that Christian Haydenson's going to be coming back as Darth Vader, which should be pretty cool to see him in Obi-Wan fight. Because we always thought that line in A New Hope was, before last time we fought, I was but the learner, but now I am the master. I always thought that was just in reference to episode 3. Maybe it's not. Maybe they did fight one last time before they meet again in A New Hope, which would be cool to see in this show. But we're getting, and then for me, I'm so excited for Ahsoka because of Rebels, what happens in Rebels and what's going to take place in her story. You almost know what's going to happen. I don't want to spoil it for Ryan, but for fans, they know because there's already been some confirmed characters for it. But what's overall, guys, let's wrap up our thoughts here for the season. I'll go ahead and start us off. Again, there's so much I enjoyed about it. But just as a story, as a whole, as structure, me and Ryan talk about structure, especially Ryan. It's just structurally, it just didn't stick the landing. It was just it wasn't as not dramatic, cohesive, but it wasn't as dramatic, and it wasn't just as strong as it could have been. Mm-hmm. And it took way too much time with certain things, and it didn't give enough time to other things that they should have. And it also makes me really excited for the future of this time frame between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens, that we can really explore more, especially when he introduced a lot of characters who were just in the cartoons and comics now into live action, which was so great to see. But we'll see. I will say I remember when it ended, I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's the ending. And when Mando's off with Grogu which, by the way, seeing it in a Naboo Starfighter, that was just like really like a blast from the fucking past.
I wanted to speak about that before we finished.
Yeah, so you can bring it up in your last minute stuff, but God, that was such a cool blast from the past to see. I was like, and just how fast it is fucking sweet to see. But I will say it kind of lowered it even more for me, deflated the air in my tires with the end credit scene, which was the guy who we thought was dead, Cab Vance,
whatever.
Whatever his name is, he's gonna get modified. He's in the Bacta tank. I'm like, okay, I could have got something else, but okay. And I remember going at the end. I'm like, is there another end credit scene? No, that's it. And I was, oh,
No?
It just kind of deflated me more, and I was just kind of like, okay, I guess. But I am so excited for Mando season 3. I want to see where that goes, and I really liked how they explored a little more of the Darksaber in those 2 episodes than because you got a lot of it in Rebels and Clone Wars, but you didn't get a lot here. And I liked how they kind of explored that some more. And they're probably going to go to Mandalore to try and take it back with Katie Sackhoff's character, because he has to go down there to redeem himself to be a Mandalorian.
What happens is he'll get baptized, and as he's getting baptized in the waters, because they talk about he has to get in the waters.
The waters,
so as he's getting baptized, people will get blown away in a little montage, and it'll just be more.
By the way, that scene of A Trail of 1,000 Tears, or the whatever it is called, the remember when they talk about how Mandalore was destroyed? It had a very T2 scene moment where like the droids just walk around fucking just killing people. That was a very T2 scene. That was really cool to see. But anyway, I so much I liked. I probably watched snippets of the show. I wouldn't go back and watch the whole thing like I would like Mandalorian season 2 or season 1. But I was probably pick episodes from it. But Ryan, what about you? Your overall thoughts and what you're looking forward to for the future?
Again, like I'm just much more lukewarm than you guys are on this whole thing. Like
I gave it a 6. What do you mean you're more lukewarm than me?
Well, I mean, I'm not as passionate about even the stuff that I didn't like. I don't think I disliked as much as you. Or the stuff I like, I didn't like as much as you. I just sort of like, yeah, okay. It's a thing. It's there. And there's, I'm definitely not as passionate about the Mandalorian and Grogu and their relationship. I'm like, yeah, okay. So they're together again. I know you guys you love it, and that's cool.
Because it's the best part of Star Wars we've gotten in a long time.
Yeah. True. Well, since 1983. I mean, sure.
No, there's been other stuff in between. Again, you got to watch Clone Wars.
Clone Wars and Rebels is pretty fucking great. I'm just saying.
But I stand by Rogue One being an outstanding film.
Yeah, Rogue One's actually really good.
I stand by Solo being an outstanding film.
Yeah, you like Solo a lot more than I do. Yeah, he loves.
We did our Solo review, and I was like 9 out of 10. He was like, "What the hell?"
I was like, "It's all right. It's okay."
I look forward to the day you give a 9 out of 10 while I'm here, my friend.
Yeah.
Just go back.
I've still not seen it.
I think our very first review. But now I'm going off on a total tangent. Our very first review was together, me and Josh ever, was 10 Cloverfield Lane, which I love.
Yeah,
named the second best movie of the year. So
we both
but anyway, yes, Book of Boba Fett, like always, as always, I'm more lukewarm than either of you two guys. I'm just, We'll
definitely get you caught up on Clone Wars and Rebels before Ahsoka's show comes out, because it'll really sink your teeth into that story, because it's really, I'm excited. I'm really pumped for Ahsoka.
Okay.
But anyways, James, what about you, buddy?
Again, going back to the Starfighter, just before I do my actual review.
Yeah.
Freaking loved that they put that in there, because as much as I'm not a big fan of the prequels and a lot of the stuff in the prequels, one of the first things that came out for the prequels was these images of the Naboo Starfighter. And if you've seen any of our shows where I've talked about Star Wars, the Starfighters have always been one of my favorite aspects of this. It's what pulled me into Star Wars in the first place. And seeing the Naboo Starfighter got me so excited for these movies, so excited for episode 1. And it like, even without all of the baggage of those films and the things I didn't like, the Naboo Starfighters always stood out to me as like one of the like really well designed ships. It's very cool looking, very awesome. Wasn't utilized nearly enough. So seeing it back, seeing it sort of like souped up and sort of like kit bash, and like it's not quite Naboo Starfighter style. It's more Rebellion era Starfighter, because it's like it looks like it's falling apart from the seams, but it's sort of like enhanced, and like that was a fun trip. Watching him fly it was amazing. Seeing him going through Beggar's Canyon was outstanding. There's a great
that was so cool.
There's a great little throwback to episode 1 where he goes up the ramp. If you notice, the gates on the ramp are destroyed.
That's from
when Anakin went through there. They haven't fixed those goddamn ramps in 50 years or 40 years or however long it's been. And I love that a little attention to detail that they put in there to show that like this is a planet that like doesn't change much. It's very slow to adapt and evolve. And just seeing that was like such a thrill, and the throwback of like, again, him going through Beggar's Canyon, because that's been, a sort of a term that we've heard since the very first film about, pilots test themselves trying to maneuver through Beggar's Canyon, and seeing him test the ship for the first time through there is like, that's the perfect way to do it. That is outstanding. And then the little bit at the end, the last scene where, Grogu's tapping on the glass bubble and he's like, no, Tink, tink, tink. No. Tink, tink, tink. No.
And he
Tink, tink, tink.
slams hard on
Okay,
it.
fine. And he pushes the button and they go flying and Rutger's like, and it's just, it's this amazing scene. I love the starship. And I love that it's just the two of them now and he can move on from bounty hunting because he doesn't have the full ship where he can like put people in carbonite anymore. It's a lot harder for him to like store people in this thing. So I think that's it's an indication that they're moving him in a different direction. Which I'm very much looking forward to. Is like that's the theme of this, is not just, you know, you alluded to the idea of like kind of like bucking your own sort of
fate and your destiny,
fate and history and all that stuff. I like the idea of like this being a second chance for everybody and this being a new opportunity for everybody and being able to let go of the baggage. Because when we first see Din Djarin in his episode, like he's very clearly not into this anymore. He's very like, we see him go into that cooler and he's like this isn't, it's hard work for him now. And like, he's getting shot and beaten up and he's walking around with the burn on his leg the entire time. That's something else we forgot to mention. That fucking Wunner shot.
Yeah.
Was amazing.
That one shot was awesome.
There's a single take shot that lasts for like 2 or 3 minutes where he's like walking through and he goes and meets the council. And like, those shots are hard to do because you have to hide lights. You have to hide cameras. You have to hide like all kinds of gear and stuff. And it's like, you have to make the set seamless. And like, I didn't even notice until someone pointed out that it was a Wunner, and I went back and watched it. I'm like, this is amazing work. Not that I doubt
noticed
them,
that
but
too. Yeah. And
like,
even little snippets there where when he walks up to the council, you notice his limp really reduces because he's trying to put on a show of strength.
Yeah.
But as he walks away, it gets even more and more apparent. It's because just those little character moments are really cool.
And like, he's clearly in a lot of pain. Like, that is not a slight burn. Anyway, I loved all those attention to details. Again, bringing back the greatest character in all of Star Wars gave me no shortage of joy. I wish that they would use him more, but I got 2 more appearances by him, so I'm happy. The actual Book of Boba Fett stuff just didn't work for me the way I wanted it to. There's lots of stuff I still love, but it's like it as a whole, it didn't go anywhere I thought it needed to go. I don't think it like succeeded where it wanted to go. And I'm left feeling a little sort of, like if I'm going back to the I'll go back to the show, but I'm rewatching the last 3 episodes and that's it.
Yeah. Like, I agree.
I enjoy the memes of Boba Fett like a bantha. That's a great little meme. That's fun, but you guys have no idea what I'm talking about.
I got it.
It's all over TikTok. They just like they'll cut to like they'll set up something like where someone's explaining something, and then they'll just cut to Boba Fett on the thing like a bantha, and it's become a huge thing on Star Wars TikTok, and it's hilarious. And like I appreciate that, but it's like past beyond previous to the last 3 episodes, it's just there's nothing worth going back for me. And again, the use of Cad Bane only for them to seemingly kill him seems like a colossal waste. I hope he's still alive, because like this is a character with a lot of weight in history that seeing him in live action, a lot of people complained about his look in live action. I liked it.
He looked great.
Yeah, I thought it was outstanding.
Awesome.
I'm sorry that it doesn't meet your like, and the Clone Wars, like you have to remember that the Clone Wars is very stylized in its character design. Like Count Dooku's head is not like 6 feet tall.
Right.
It's not this like giant sliver of a human face. Like there's some artistic license to the way these characters look.
Yep.
And when you see them in live action, they don't quite look like that. I thought he looked outstanding. I'm sorry he doesn't meet your expectations. He's also much older than they're supposed to be, but
yeah, he's an old man by now.
But he's well past like old age at this point, where his species is supposed to die out at like 70, and he's like in his 80s now apparently. Someone did the math.
Yeah, he's meant as like an elder now. He's looked as an elder.
Like he's beyond an elder. He's like one of those 100-year-old Asian people who like lived well on like beetroots and meditation all of these years, kind of thing. And this man has not lived on beetroot and meditation. This man's lived a hard life.
As a bounty hunter, yeah.
So like I'm disappointed by like, it's cool that they brought him in.
You guys paused completely.
Oh, you're paused on my screen too.
You're frozen, buddy. Yeah, Ryan's frozen.
Nope.
There he goes.
Okay. All right.
There we go.
All right.
Something must have happened. Either way, like there is a lot of history there. You just don't see it in live action. There is so much history there between him and Boba in Clone Wars. A lot of it.
I'm not talking about bringing up the history. I just wish that it meant more on screen, that there was history in terms of plot and whatnot, because he just kind of shows up, shoots Cab Vanth, and then is kind of a hindrance during their big fight scene, but then ends up like not being one. And it's like, if you're having him show up, he is a thorn in everyone's side. He is constantly a thorn in everyone's side, and he ruins everyone's plans all the time.
Oh yeah.
Like if he's showing up to do that, he should do that.
Yeah, right.
Whereas like he just kind of shows up and then gets stabbed. It's like,
right.
Do more with that. Do more with that, please, because that should have been such a better moment in this show, and it wasn't. And I'm disappointed by that. I'm not even a big Cad Bane kind of fan. And it just like, I know the importance of this character, and it still fell flat. Again, the most important part of this seems to be Mando and Grogu and their development, because even all of that meant more in the 2 episodes that they had than anything, or the 3 episodes, I guess 2.5 episodes,
right?
Than everything else that happened. And it's like, we see where your loyalties lie. And I wish that, like, if you're going to do this show, give it its full sort of gusto. I feel like you were sort of like, their heart was only half into it. This definitely needed another draft. I've heard some talk about them actually reordering the episodes, because they thought it'd be too boring to watch all of the Bantha stuff. So they wanted to cut it in between the modern day stuff. And like, just, it didn't work. I see what you were going for, but it didn't end up working. Right. It's a lot of disappointment, a lot of excitement, a lot of great nostalgia, a lot of great little throwbacks, even the little droid from that recent Star Wars game with the redhead dude.
Yeah.
That Ryan hates.
Yeah.
Yeah. That guy, BD or something, showing up. That was great. But like, you can't build a show solely on nostalgia. There still needs to be plot and character and something to hook us in. And you had a concept of, Boba Fett becoming a ruler of the underworld on Tatooine, and he kind of becomes that, and even he's not all that interested. And it's like, if your main character's not interested in his own story, why should we be?
Right. I agree. Well, we'll see. I mean, I'm sure they'll have another Book of Boba Fett season. We'll see if it gets better or not. Either way, we got a lot to look forward to as far as the future of the, Star Wars TV shows. I'm really looking forward to a lot to have in the future. So we'll see where it goes. But at the end of the day, I agree with all of you guys. There was a lot of great stuff, but there was a lot of stuff that was really disappointing, which is kind of sucks. But all right, folks, that'll do it for today. Thank you very much for watching. More importantly, what did you think of the Book of Boba Fett? Leave your comments section below. Let us know your positives and your negatives, your score out of 10. And if there's any questions you were curious about that we did not answer, as far as like some of our thoughts on things, our predictions, jump in the comments, let us know, and we will try and answer those for you as well. Also, if you like what you watch, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel so you can receive all of our great content we have coming for you in the future. But that's all for today. I'm Josh Williams.
I'm Ryan Murphy.
I'm James Sheridan.
And thank you for keeping it real.
With ReelTime.
Utini!